Hello folks, what's going on? So in this video I got a solicitation. This is some exchange to and fro, a few text discourse between a fellow and his girlfriend, and they're getting a smidgen of a disagreement over how she's doing her time, with her child and the dad of her child. It's simply one more justification for why you would rather not deal with single parents. Allow me just to read this, and I'll give you this specific circumstance. It expresses here, to and fro, and afterward she goes, I need to tell you that I'm meeting with the child and her father after work for supper and a film. Will be finished around 9 or 10. I simply needed to tell you before I acknowledge the welcome. I trust that doesn't annoy you. Now first priority straight here, she's not requesting his consent. She's not requesting his pardoning or anything. She's simply fundamentally telling him, I will go spend time with my child and her father, and we will go watch a film and eat together. And afterwards she says, I trust that doesn't annoy you. He answers with, I will put it in the manner in which it sounds. My sweetheart is hanging out at her condo with her ex and her daughter while I'm working. He's right on the money, but we should simply proceed. Really, I would be going to his home, and indeed. That is what's going on. However, I have had this custom with him for quite a long time and kept it since I moved out before you and I met. He says I know, and afterward the subsequent page and the last one says then. He then rewords it. My better half is going to her ex's home to spend time with him and his daughter while I'm working. And afterwards she says, I'm attempting to comprehend what annoys you about this, and he says it's regard issue. It feels discourteous when my girlfriend goes to her ex's home to spend time with him and his little girl while I'm working. In the event that you're actually doing that after you've broken up, your relationship isn't finished. I'm not a cuckold. A cuckold is someone that basically brings up the offspring of another man. Fundamentally, he jumps at the chance to watch another man get physically involved with his partner, or brings up the offspring of another man. There's an entire pack of various ways that it's been characterized. However, that is basically what it is. It's not complimenting, it's continuously belittling. Then he says, if I am on the wrong, please tell me how. She says, I can't answer you right now since I'm going to sign into a meeting. We should talk later, and that is ordinarily the way in which things like that go. The setting to that is somewhat entertaining and intriguing simultaneously, yet by the day's end, if you will manage a single parent, you will manage garbage like this. It's simply unavoidable. You welcome a lady into your life that has a kid or kids close behind from an alternate marriage or a relationship or a beau or something to that effect. You will wind up in a circumstance like this eventually. For this situation, it simply seems like one child. I've gone over various folks here and there with even several children from various dads. You want to talk about inviting complexity and complicating your life unnecessarily. Go date a chick that's got a bunch of kids from a bunch of different men and see how easy, lucrative, and fun your life ends up being in an environment like that. It just doesn't. It ends up being a freaking nightmare. All in all, is this person wrong? Indeed, not actually. Could you want your better half or spouse spending time with an ex, eating in a film? I comprehend that there's an anchor here, which is the child, the normal kind of denominator between these two individuals. Folks like this are everlastingly going to battle with this dynamic. Ladies can't stand it when folks have kids from an earlier relationship and they don't. Guys by and large are more tolerating of ladies' past and her decisions. The greatest contrast among people is men as a rule have significantly less guardianship than ladies. Ladies get something like 80% of the guardianship request, and something like 43 or 44% kids today are raised by a single mother. If you're a man or a lady and you're dating, if you're a man dating a lady with kids, she has her children basically constantly. A ton of these fellows, regardless of whether they have offspring of their own, they frequently end up in a situation where they invest more energy bringing up a few different fellows' kids than they do bringing up their own children. The reference that he made to cuck is essentially right on target, since she's fundamentally cucking him by investing energy with this person. Some might dissent, others might contend it, yet he has a point. The place of this that I'm genuinely attempting to make here is it doesn't make any difference how you attempt to cut up this. They say there's this large number of various ways of cleaning a feline and manage it. Sure, yet once more, quit welcoming intricacy into your life superfluously by dealing with single mothers. There's in every case additional layers of issue that show up when you begin managing around here. It's rarely straightforward, it's rarely simple, it certainly isn't tomfoolery, and it makes certain as damnation not worthwhile. You need a simple, worthwhile, and fun life? Don't date single mothers, avoid them. On the off chance that you get into a companions with benefits situation, fine, but when she begins giving you the hello, My children have been investigating my shoulder and pondering who I've been messaging. I think it'd be cool assuming you came over at some point, and you met them kind of thing, and take all of us out to have some cheddar. That is the point at which you're like, no, next, I'm great. That is the degree, that is a limit. That is a hindrance, respectable man, that you ought to put around yourself and your life, particularly if you're a single person without any children. It's generally single folks without any children dealing with ladies that have children. Fellows are so lenient, too sympathetic in assuming the weight of basically what is the presentation of assuming the part of a parent, and they wind up having no authority as a parent except for 100% obligation as a parent to a youngster that they didn't father, doesn't have their DNA, certain as damnation, doesn't triumph ultimately their last name. There's no advantage to it, totally, none at all. It's all disadvantage and risk, and discussing risk, to give you a model, I can't count the quantity of folks that I've had discussions with that were dating single moms that put themselves in a climate or basically a position where, since they were with them for a specific time frame and where they resided in their state or region, the state saw it as a marriage since you lived respectively for a specific time frame. It's nearly considered normal regulation. You can be on the snare, and a few people have been on the snare for kid support for a child that you didn't father, that doesn't triumph ultimately your last name, and doesn't have your DNA since you assumed the part of daddy sufficiently long. So according to the Express, that is adequate for them to essentially say indeed, despite the fact that they didn't emerge from your balls and you didn't father them. You actually endured 2.5 years living respectively, going about as a dad, and you're currently on the snare for kid support until they're grown-ups. You folks can post these things and exchange to a great extent and a field report and how you manage this and it. Why? Simply don't do. The main justification for why fellows deal with single parents is, 1, there's a wealth of them, and I comprehend that since there's no responsibility to ladies. I know that there's some YouTube channels out there that get a ton of perspectives and rake in boatloads of cash off attempting to consider ladies responsible to sensible principles or even men's sensible norms. They never go anyplace. It is only for diversion. It's totally ridiculous and pointless to do any of that stuff. You're settling for less. To carry on with a superior life, to get more out of life, to succeed at life, and essentially live in a simple, rewarding, fun life, you really want to hold yourself to better expectations. There's no person that I know that is fruitful, rich, looking good, fascinating, charming, who do fun things with their lives. They have a ton of social evidence. They have impact. They're to a greater degree a best-in-class kind of fellow that will choose a lady with kids close behind over a lady that is more youthful, more sweltering, riper, and without a few other man's children close behind. They generally go for the more youthful, more sizzling ones without kids. Be that person, level yourself up so that you're in the main 1%, 5%. Get into the top percentile kind of thing, and afterward, you don't need to manage any of this gibberish. Try not to welcome that issue into your life, and you won't ever have discussions like this with a lot of irregular outsiders on a talk board after you read a few books or watched several recordings requesting that they attempt to offer you a few clearness and some assistance with the imbecilic trash that you've been doing with your life. I'll leave it at that. Crush the like button. Leave a remark beneath about your own insight. Harmony out.